Good evening and welcome. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for major variations, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Will you please call the roll?
Scott Gingold,
I am here.
Mary Beth Burns, Matt Rogers,
Present.
Violetta Cullen,
Here.
Myrna Aravallo, Beth McLennan,
Here.
Andrew Gallimore.
With 4 members present, we do have a quorum. We are expecting a 5th member to join us, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Also present tonight is zoning planner Melissa Klotz, and no one else. This is a formal meeting, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time, so all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from the staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all the supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you're at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you may be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do have 2 items on the agenda for this evening. The first one is the matter of 1323 Ashland Avenue. Is the applicant present? And the second one is for 825 Asbury Avenue, and is the applicant present for that as well? Thank you. The first matter on our agenda this evening is to approve our meeting minutes for April 21st. Has everyone who attended that meeting had an opportunity to read through them? And
Yes.
were there any edits or changes?
None from me.
None.
I did have one. On page 4, in the conditions that we had listed for the Howard Street property, in the motion that was made, section number 4, alley must be speed controlled with signage. I think that we had initially just said traffic mitigation, not signage in particular.
Oh, you're right about that.
Right.
So if we could just amend the minutes to that so that it's accurately reflected for council. Other than that, if there are no other changes, if anyone would make a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st with the suggested change.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I will note that any member who is not voting was not in attendance at that meeting. With that, we will move into the first item on our agenda this evening, which is 1323 Ashland Avenue. And before I have you read it into the record, I'll make the statement that I've made before. The property owner in this particular case is a member of this board who has recused herself from this hearing, but obviously we will be making a decision based on her property, but I believe that we are all able to remain neutral enough to not have our relationship interfere. So with that, will you please read it into the record?
Tina Kress, consulting architect, applies for major zoning relief to construct a dormer addition and 2-car detached garage. The applicant requests a 1.6-foot north interior side yard setback where 5 feet is required. Zoning code section 6847A. A 2.5-foot south interior side yard setback where 5 feet is required. Zoning code section 6847A. And a dormer within 10.5% of the length of the sidewall closest to the front facade, where a dormer shall not be located within 20% of the length of the sidewall closest to the front facade. Zoning code section 6818B. The applicant also requests a 2.6-foot north interior side yard setback where 3 feet is required. Zoning code sections 6462E and 6847C4 for the detached garage. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include variance application submitted March 16th, 2015, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated February 20th, 2015, site plan, elevations, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, preservation meeting draft minutes excerpt of April 21st, 2015, and Dapper meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2015.
Thank you. With that, I will ask that anybody who may be speaking to us in this matter be sworn at this time by raising their right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? I do. Thank you. And Ms. Kress, if you would please come up and tell us about your proposal. Actually, I'm sorry, start with stating your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tina Kress. My address is 2238 West Wilson in Chicago.
Thank you. And now if you'd please tell us about your project.
Sure. So this is an existing two-flat on a substandard lot to be converted into a single-family residence with a new two-car garage. The building has not been properly maintained for decades and has been completely vacant for the last 3 years. As part of this major renovation, we are requesting 3 variations. The first one is for both the north and the south dormer additions for the side yards. So those are being built over the existing non-conforming exterior walls. The second one is for the north dormer only for the front setback. This dormer is not large, but is necessary to allow the existing interior stair to continue to the attic. The current stair to the attic doesn't meet any code requirements at all, basically. And while several options were looked at for where to relocate the existing stair, all other options present both structural and headroom issues, or in some cases both. Structurally, it makes the most sense to utilize the existing infrastructure and to impact the existing house as minimally as possible by putting the new stair to the attic above the existing interior stair. And the third variation is for the new garage. There's currently no parking on the site, but there is a slab still there that isn't usable, but indicates where the previously demolished garage is, which is in the same location we are proposing to put this new garage. Without this variation, it would be impossible to meet the off-street parking requirement. The narrowness of the lot makes it impossible to get a garage that fits within the setback and is still wide enough for 2 cars to fit in comfortably. That's it.
A couple of questions for you. Did you mention that this was in the packet that was shared, or did I miss it?
I did not, I'm sorry. Additionally, at the beginning of the meeting, passed out were new elevation drawings based on the recommendations of the Preservation Commission.
So these basically deal with, it looks like more than anything else, materials being used on the exterior of the building as opposed to any change in size or scope of the project, really.
Yep, material changes, and they had some requested window changes. So we had some places where we had 3 windows, and they requested we go down to a pair.
But it's all preservation
It's all preservation.
request. It doesn't change overall bulk or
Nope.
height or anything like
No.
that,
Nope.
footprint?
No.
Okay, thank you. You had mentioned that there is a slab currently existing in back from a demolished garage. Was that garage standing when you bought the property? Or
No.
was it already
No.
gone before then? Okay.
And that slab's not accessible. The apron is all heaved, and you can't get on it.
Okay. So it's probably been gone for a while. The requested setbacks that you are making, why the particular request for these specific setbacks?
So for the garage or?
No,
for
I'm
the-
sorry, for the property, for the house, the main structure.
So for the side yard setbacks, those are so that the new dormers can be placed on the existing exterior walls. Those walls are existing, non-conforming. And so, from a structural perspective, from a maintenance perspective, bringing those dormers down onto those existing walls just makes the most sense,
Okay.
and aesthetically as well.
And the attic, the steps going up to the attic, which is why you are requesting the one dormer be situated where it is
Mm-hmm.
that the current location for the steps going to the attic, or where are they
It is
currently in
not.
the
They're-
building?
They're currently in the southwest corner of the building, southeast corner of the building. And they run smack into the roof, and they don't conform to any headroom width, rise.
So
code at
placing
all.
them in that particular area would not be a feasible option either. You'd probably need to do something to
Yeah,
accommodate that.
yes. We also looked at a number of other options and, trying to have a straight run stair, trying to, have a switchback that's turned in the other direction. In all other cases, there are structural challenges or, clearance challenges that just make all other options unfeasible.
And the building is currently set up as a two-flat, is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm assuming anything that's being done on the interior will have secondary kitchens on second floor removed, that
Yes.
sort of stuff?
Yeah.
So that the building, if it is converted to a single family, would not be converted back easily to a two-flat if that were the case?
No, this is definitely becoming a single-family home.
Is this property being developed for the owner's residence, or is it being developed for resale?
Resale.
It's just additional bedrooms in the attic? That's the reason for the?
Yeah, there's two additional bedrooms and a bathroom.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, I see the attic plan, I see the first floor plan. I don't see the second floor plan. Why am I not seeing that?
The second floor has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
Okay.
And is there any proposed change to the footprint of the building?
Just the addition of a small mudroom off of the back of the building,
Okay. And-
one-story mudroom.
And that's not affecting us in terms of building lot coverage or
We're way under.
anything like that? I just was curious because of it being a substandard lot and that not being one of the requested variations, that we weren't triggering something.
I was going to ask the same, given the new deck and stairs.
With the addition, the building lot coverage is 100 square feet under.
Okay. And the garage that's going in the back is going to cover the existing slab. The slab will obviously probably be replaced, but there's no increase in size to that.
Is it? It is, yeah. So it was a one-car garage, and it
Okay.
will now be a two-car garage.
So how much bigger is it getting, do you know?
Do you know? Can you say that? 7 feet bigger.
7 feet, so not significantly. It's not like we're increasing it by 100 square feet or anything like that. Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant? Any from,
Sorry, just another question. So there's, with the increase in the slab and the increased coverage. There's not a impervious space issue either.
With the proposed improvements, it comes out exactly at the maximum 60% requirement for impervious surface and just slightly under the maximum for building lot coverage.
Refresh me on why we wanted 20% setback for dormers, 20% of length of sidewall closest to front facade. Like, what's the reasoning behind that?
Primarily, it's for aesthetics. If a dormer is pushed all the way forward, it can make the bulk of the house look larger than it truly is from the street.
Okay.
So, sorry. So, given that this is a resale property, can you describe what hardship the owner is facing that requires the variation?
Well, specifically the dormer variation or any of them?
All of them.
There's public benefit to, it's not a hardship, there's public benefit to making the changes to, renovating and making livable a property that currently is not livable.
So the owner is not claiming any hardship that necessitates the variations?
So yes, there is the hardship that necessitates the variations, but there's the need to make money on the resale of the property in order to make it a livable space. I mean, basically, we couldn't do that at all if we couldn't have the variation for the stair. So. Not answering your question, I think.
I don't know if you have.
Do you guys mind if I address that?
No.
Okay.
You're entitled to speak to the board.
So there are hardships because it's a substandard lot and the house is in an existing non-conforming location. So there's nothing I can do about where those dormers go, right? They're going on top of the side walls. And the same thing with the garage. I'm just trying to put the garage wall back to where it was originally. So I'm not asking for more, just asking for it to go back where it was originally. So those are the functional hardships. I guess I just wanted to touch on also that that whole standard about how it can't be primarily made. The request can't be primarily based upon making a return on investment, but it has a public benefit. And this house has been sitting derelict for 3 years. It has a tremendous amount of work and related to asbestos and lead and structural challenges as well. The scope of this project is such that I think that your average homeowner would be overwhelmed by the project, and so the house would sit there for a longer period of time and continue to go into disrepair. One of the other benefits, right, is that we're taking a house that is a landmark house that previously had gotten a COA for vinyl siding and taking that vinyl siding off and restoring the house back to its landmark status with landmark quality by exposing all the exterior wood shingles and repainting it and fixing everything up that way. So there is money to be made on the project. The variances will result in there being a profit, but there is also public benefit to the neighborhood and to the city of Evanston as a whole.
Just as a point of clarification, too, that when we say that the standard, I don't remember the exact wording about deriving income, that doesn't mean that we expect people who develop homes to make profit, otherwise they don't develop homes. So I just want to put that out there, that that's not a thing saying you cannot make money on a home.
Nor was my question about whether the project was intended for profit. I do have another question if you were ready to move on from it.
Yeah.
So in view of the fact that you have to pour a new pad for the garage anyway, couldn't you pour it in a compliant way so that we don't have to grant a variation?
I certainly could. It just means that on a 25-foot lot, you're down to 19 feet out to out on the garage, which is really 18 on the inside. 18 feet is really too tight for two-car garage. So I wasn't asking for more than where that existing garage is. Furthermore, the garage that's to the north, the neighbor's property to the north, they are a good 3 feet off of their side yard. So between the two garages, it'll be 5.5 feet, which is a fair amount. And did you guys get by any chance take a look at what that garage looks like, that coach house? It is a very large two-story coach house that I think from a square footage perspective is actually bigger than the main house on that lot. So from a scale perspective, I don't think there's any problem with that. It's just that it gets really tight to be able to get to get the garage to work. And because there was the foundation was there originally, it seemed to make sense that to be able to replace it in the exact same location.
But you're replacing it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it doesn't need to be in that location.
If you want to be able to have a fully functional two-car garage that meets the requirements of parking, the extra 5 inches helps achieve that.
I'm good. No more questions from me.
No, I'm good.
All right, with that, Mr. Gallimore has joined us, but he will not be voting on this matter since he missed the initial part of the presentation. But if we do not have 4 concurrent votes, he will vote at the next meeting he attends, as will anybody else who's missing, except for Ms. Burns, obviously. So with that, Ms. Kress, is there anything you'd like to say in summation before we close the record and begin our deliberations?
Sure. In summary, I just, want to say that, the goal is to salvage the character of this home, to, take this opportunity to save it from tear down and replacement with generic new construction home, which is something that would be more likely to happen elsewhere.
All right, thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberations. As I mentioned earlier, we are the determining body in this matter. General thoughts on the project from people?
I mean, what Ms. Cross just said at the end, I mean, if it became a tear down, whoever was doing the tear down would be right back here trying to get variances to put something livable and sellable on a 4,000 square foot lot. So I think this is a win for preservation purposes.
And I think the community probably benefits better from it being renovated than torn down and rebuilt.
Whenever we go through a project, we have to find that it meets a certain set of standards in order for us to approve the project. There are 7 standards for a variation that come before us, which we've kind of alluded to a little bit during our discussion. But we do have to go through those and find if they are met or not. The first standard Unless anybody has anything to add before this, I'll just go through the standards. The first standard is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. We didn't have particular testimony to the neighboring properties, but I will mention that in the minutes from the meeting at Dapper, there was mention of neighbors approving, and one neighbor being an absentee landlord, so they were unable to reach them. But overall, obviously, anytime a property is improved from a dilapidated state, it usually has the opposite impact and makes neighboring property values increase, as well as making those properties more usable for the people who live in those properties. So I believe standard number 1 has met. Standard number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Obviously, the zoning ordinance is constructed in such a way that when we have properties that no longer are working, we try to adjust that housing stock as necessary without going overboard on making it more usable with what people expect in a home that is what we consider a modern home. The fact that this home or this property is being converted from a 2-flat into a single-family home will hopefully provide a little more stability in this particular neighborhood, as opposed to a 2-flat, which usually involves renters of some sort. But I believe that standard number 2 has also been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. This is a substandard lot. As we mentioned, it's about just over half the size, probably about 60% of the size of what we consider a standard lot in the city of Evanston. And the fact that we have not been presented with a proposal that seeks to increase the footprint of the building drastically. I think we determined there'd be roughly 110 additional square feet of coverage on the property between the mudroom, which is being added at the back, and the proposed garage. It's kind of impressive that can happen on such a small property. Normally we see things that are trying to be overdeveloped. And this particular property seems to be going more up as opposed to out. So I believe standard number 3 is met. Standard number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. There was a little bit of discussion on this about what is the particular hardship. The fact that we have a home that is a historic home and is being converted in such a way that it can be reused with somebody making it a single-family home instead of a 2-flat presents some issues in terms of having the wall setbacks. Obviously, one of the things that we're most concerned with, and we've had some discussion many times on, is when a second-story addition is proposed, trying to keep that second-story addition on the existing first-floor walls so as not to require developers to actually have to redistribute weight. And so I feel that this particular standard has been met with the fact that we are building on those existing walls, and I believe the parking pad is 7 square feet to 10 square feet larger. So I believe standard number 4 is met. Standard number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. There's also a supporting clause here saying that additional income can be drawn from a property if we find that there are public benefits to the surrounding neighborhood, the city as a whole. As I mentioned, we do not expect developers to not make income off of their properties. This particular project is claiming a public benefit which would be taking a home that has been empty for 3 years, I think was the number of years, converting it into a usable space. So I believe standard number 5 is met. Standard number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. Obviously, the situation of the building on the property, the fact that it is a substandard lot, are issues that have existed prior to the time that this particular homeowner purchased the property, or this particular property owner purchased their property. And so I believe standard number 6 is also met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. As mentioned in many of the other standards that we've gone through, the requests seem to be minimal at best. The fact that we are building on existing first floor structures and basically replacing an existing parking pad with a slight increase in order to make the 2-car garage a more feasible option. But I believe standard number 7 is met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on standards?
I apologize, but I have determined to abstain from voting in the matter because I'm not sure I can be objective.
Okay. Which means that we will not be able to have a determining vote this evening. But we will go ahead and make a proposal, I'll ask for a motion to move the matter forward. If you'd like to do that, Beth?
Sure. I move in the case of 1323 Ashland Avenue, ZBA, case number 15ZMJV-0022, that we approve major variations of a 1.6 north interior side yard setback where 5 is required, a 2.5 foot south interior side yard setback where 5 foot is required, a dormer within 10.5% of the length of the sidewall closest to the front facade where 20% of the length is required, and a 2.6 foot north interior side yard setback where 3 foot is required for the detached garage, with the following condition: that the project proceed in substantial compliance with all of the documents and testimony presented here tonight.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? With 3 votes in, excuse me, with 3 votes in favor, the motion is not enough to carry, so the matter will be held until our next meeting, at which members who are absent here tonight or who joined us late this evening will have an opportunity to cast a vote. But there will be no further need for any discussion. They will just be asked to review the record and then cast their vote at the next meeting. So stay with us until the next meeting. You don't actually have to be present at the meeting, although you're more than welcome to. With that, we will move to our second case for this evening, which is 825 Asbury Avenue, and I'll ask that that be read into the record.
Catherine Verma, property owner, applies for major zoning relief to construct a second-story addition. The applicant requests a 1.9-foot north interior side yard setback where 5 feet is required. Zoning Code Section 6847A. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include variance application submitted April 6, 2015, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated March 13, 2015, site plans, elevations, letters of support, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes of April 22, 2015.
Thank you. At this point, anybody who may be speaking to us on the matter for 825 Asbury, if you'd please be sworn by raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if you would please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Vishal Verma, 922 Main Street, Unit 3.
And could you spell your last name for me, please?
Verma, V-E-R-M-A.
Thank you.
And I'm Catherine Verma.
Thank you. And if you would please tell us about your proposed project.
Sure. So we're planning a renovation, including a second floor addition. The existing home is in violation of setback requirements on the north property line. It's currently 2 feet from the north property line. The reason for the variance is for the second floor addition, we'd prefer not to offset the second floor from the first floor. We just think structurally it makes more sense to do this. So that's pretty much it.
We're in compliant with all other setbacks, north, south, or I'm sorry, east, west, and south. And we've spoken with as many neighbors in the area as we can about the project, and all are very happy to hear that we purchased the home. It was on the market for almost a year, and are willing to put in the time and effort to renovate it.
Is there any proposed change to the existing footprint of the building?
No.
No, the only thing that we're doing is actually removing, there's a breezeway that was added, which,
On the south side.
which is on the, yeah, it's on the south side of the property, and it was just a little breezeway so that I'm pretty sure they had to go outside in order to get into the basement to do their laundry, so they just kind of added this little square on, so we're just removing that and then making the, yeah, exactly, that little space, and then we're just making it an
Square.
actual corner, because right now it's like on an angle, the door into that space.
So you're removing that little piece that butts out there
Yeah,
and just kind of squaring off where it says, and I can't read the number there, but it like says 10.07 or something, that
Right,
wall?
yeah.
right.
You're bringing
So-
that all the way to the back of the,
No, not even. So it'll maybe go out like 2 more feet. Or there you go, 14.3. So it's just, right now, the entrance to that breezeway is on a diagonal. And so we're just going to square it off. That's where our new kitchen will be. So
Okay.
we just would prefer a square rather than some angle that we have to, mess with cabinetry and such.
okay. And I've noticed that there is a plan to add a front porch.
Yeah, right now there's kind of a strange like entryway where it's like one door and then just a narrow hallway, and then I'm pretty sure was the actual entrance to the when it was built in 1864. So what they did was they enclosed the front porch. You can see where the bump out is, which was enclosed, and then they just kind of made this little narrow hallway to where the real front door is. So we're proposing to just open that space up and add on some square footage so that we have a nice little front porch, so it appeals to the front facade and makes it look a little bit dimensionally more interesting.
But you're well enough under on your lot coverage that you aren't going to have to come back to us in order to do this porch addition. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we're at 40%. And we're also within the setback requirement for that. The stairs are within, might be like within like a foot of the setback, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, we just mentioned, so building lot coverage, it's good. What about impervious surface? I'm sure that's probably,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
under.
Is this going to be your house you're living in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, the existing footprint, the back half of the house is actually 3 or 4 steps down. So in order to get into the bathroom, you open the door and take 3 steps down to get into the bathroom. And the same for the back bedroom. You open the door and walk down 3 steps to get into the back bedroom. So we just want to level out the first floor, and in doing that, we lose one of the 3 bedrooms because one of the bedrooms is above the bedroom that's down 3 steps. So it just, we're trying to make it more inhabitable.
Additional questions?
No.
And you did mention that you've spoken with a number of the neighbors.
Yeah.
And they are in support of the project.
Correct, yeah, we have a letter from the neighbor to the north, which is the lot line that is, the setback requirement, and she's perfectly happy to provide a letter stating that she's okay with it, and we actually met a neighbor that lives out in the street, and they're excited for us as well. Basically, anyone that we've come in contact with is thrilled that something's happening with it.
Okay. I did notice a couple other people had wanted to speak to us, so I'm going to ask them to come up and address us, and then we'll allow the Vermas to come back up and make any closing statements. So, sir, if you'd like to come up and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Ben Porter. I'm the property owner at 1303 Washington, which is within 500 feet immediately west of this property. So I just wanted to come and voice my support of the project. And I noted that the north property line, the house to the north, which I don't own, but is about 30 feet away from the property line. So there's definitely a lot of separation between the houses. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Porter? If not, I noticed there was another couple here, and if they would like to make a statement.
Sure, my name is Tom Doyle, and my wife and I have lived on the block since 1991, and we're very familiar with this property, and it's probably the most needy property in a long ways around the neighborhood. And we actually had some friends that looked at buying this, and they just kind of threw their hands up and said it's not doable. So we are in full support of getting people to buy that property and put some energy into it, and I think it would do a lot of public good to our neighborhood to have this project completed.
Thank you. And then, so just to sort of round things out, I'll just ask the Vermas if they have anything they'd like to say in summation before we close the record, and I'll give the board one last opportunity to ask any questions they may have.
I think we've said all we need to say.
Yeah, we're just trying to do what's best for the property and have a nice place to live, so.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberations. I'll say that I've seen this property for a while on Zillow or one of those many sites and kind of looked at it and thought, oh, that's a house that needs some help. And so I'm glad to see somebody. I was excited when I saw the packet, and I'm like, oh, somebody's going to actually do something with that house, and rather than just tear it down or do something along those lines. So general thoughts from the board?
This case seems like one that we routinely approve. There's the only reason a variation is being requested is because the existing footprint is non-conforming, and that's usually not a reason for us not to approve it. So my personal impression is heavily in favor.
Well, I would also note that this seems to be one of those areas where all of the buildings are kind of shifted off to one side. So they have a yard that appears to be a south yard in a couple of the properties that is much greater than the required space. So because of the way the property lines were drawn with the houses and this house being here since 1864, obviously predated the concept of zoning, I believe.
Indeed.
With that, though, we do have to go through our standards, and so let me just pull those up, and these will sound very familiar. The requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. We actually have had some of the neighbors come out and voice their support of this. The homeowners claim to have spoken to the property owner who will be most impacted by this, and they seem to have his or her support. So I believe that standard number one has been met. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. As I mentioned on the previous case, what we're looking for here is, to maintain the character of our neighborhoods, but at the same time improve them and make them habitable for what is considered a property that people would want now. Obviously, this property being built in 1864 and having several additions to it over the years, it seems like the fact that someone is willing to take the time, the effort, in order to make it seem like a cohesive unit really kind of touches on everything that we have in terms of the comprehensive plan. So I believe standard number 2 has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. As I mentioned, the property is situated in such a way that it is only about 2 feet from the property line, and the fact that the second-story addition will need the support of the first floor wall. That is the reason that we're here for a request. And so it really comes down to the positioning of the property or the positioning of the structure on the property, and it is unique to this particular property. So that standard has been met. The property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. As we mentioned, the fact that trying to set a wall back for a second-story addition by approximately 2 feet, 3 feet, what do we need to go here? 5 feet is the total? Right. So the fact that we would ask someone to move that back that far would create a hardship for them in order to create a second story that would be stable and structurally sound. So standard number 4 has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. What makes this a little more unique from the first case is the fact that we have property owners here who are making this their home. And so the fact that they will at some point hopefully get a return on their investment, it's not something that they're planning on doing immediately. So standard number 5 has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The property owners are fairly new to having purchased this property. The house has been standing for 150 years, if I do my math correctly. So I can't believe that they had anything to do with putting the house where it is on the property. And standard number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, what is being asked for here is something that we routinely grant, which is the construction of a second story on top of a first floor wall in order to make it the least difficult for someone who wants to build a second story addition. So I believe standard number 7 is met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on standards?
I sure am.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, I will note for the record, I forgot to do it earlier, but Mr. Gallimore had joined us during the process of the first case, so he will be voting on this case as well. And I will ask if there is a motion in 825 Asbury Avenue.
Do you want to do one, Scott, or do you want me to? Okay. Do you want to give it a try, Violetta? You're going to have to, or Andrew, you guys are going to have to be doing them.
In the matter of ZBA 15ZMJV0024, I recommend that we approve the request for the north interior side yard setback in compliance with testimony as submitted here.
All right, it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? With 5 votes in favor, you do have the requisite 4 votes that need to move something forward for determination. So you can work with Melissa on what your next steps will be on working on your project, and good luck with it. Also, thank you to the neighbors for coming out and speaking to us this evening. Not very often do we get neighbors who come and speak in support. Usually it's the people who come and are not in support. So it's nice to have people take the time to come and speak to us. With that, we have concluded the 2 items on our agenda this evening. Points of discussion? If not, I have one. So you don't have to stick around for this if you don't want to. I know I'm fascinating to listen to. In order to try to get a little more participation from the board, what I want to start doing is I will, on occasion, assign cases to people, and I will ask you to lead us through that case, and I will not make them the most difficult and controversial ones, but something like the one we just went through, in which I'll ask you to sort of be the lead in questioning, as well as then making motion, having any of the further discussion. And it's just an effort to try to engage people a little bit more, because I do way too much talking. And while I'm sure everyone enjoys listening to me, it does get tiring after a while. So we will start to do that as cases come forward. Secondly, you may have noticed that Mario Tretto, the attorney, was not with us tonight. He will only be with us during cases that we request to have an attorney present, so we will not always have legal counsel present. And
Yeah, I mean, we can say that the month of May is my last month on the board. I'm going to be going back to school, and the classes are at night, so it's going to be very difficult for me to attend meetings. So I won't be able to participate, so I'm going to resign.
all right.
So
Well,
I'll
I won't
be-
say anything now. We'll say something at the next meeting, but I just wanted to kind of get that out there. That's one of the reasons that as I'm looking to try to bring some of the newer people in to help offset some of the duties on the older people for making motions, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, is there any other matters? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we stand adjourned until our next meeting, which will be here in City Council chambers on the 19th at 7 o'clock. Thank you.